On the lush moon of Ferris IV, part of the vast Galactic Empire, lived a peculiar group of humans. They were a minority within the empire and led simple lives in the shadow of the alien races that governed the worlds. In the bustling city of Nyx, nestled in a deep valley of glowing vegetation, the humans held a special bond with the diverse fauna. Among them, Mara Solis stood out as an ardent animal lover. Her companion was Luna, a snow-white fox-like creature with azure eyes and glowing silver markings. Luna was a rare species known as an astral fox, renowned for its intelligence and loyalty. The two shared a telepathic bond that allowed them to communicate in ways only they understood. To Mara, Luna was not just a pet, but family. Life on Ferris IV was idyllic for Mara and Luna. They would often wander through the lush forests and iridescent meadows, exploring hidden groves and bathing in crystal-clear streams. The bright moons of Ferris IV lit their way at night, and the bioluminescent flora created a serene, otherworldly atmosphere. Mara earned her living as a botanical researcher, studying the unique plant life of Ferris IV for the Institute of Galactic Biology. Luna often accompanied her on expeditions, helping her find rare species or detecting dangerous predators. In the evenings, they returned to their small home, where Luna would curl up beside the fireplace, and Mara would stroke her soft fur while writing her notes. However, the peace on Ferris IV was fragile. The Talcarans, the lizard-like overseers of the moon, were tightening their control due to increasing pressure from the Galactic Empire. They imposed strict curfews, heightened surveillance, and extracted ever-growing amounts of resources from the human settlements. Discontent simmered beneath the surface. One day, Mara overheard a conversation between Talcaran soldiers and their captain, Zalthar, at the marketplace. The Empire was demanding even more resources, and the Talcarans planned to increase their grip on the humans. "They need to understand their place," Zalthar hissed, his forked tongue flicking out. "If the humans resist, we'll make an example of them." That night, Mara shared her concerns with Luna. Through their bond, she felt Luna's anxiety and a sense of impending danger. They agreed to avoid trouble and stay out of sight. But fate had other plans. One fateful night, Mara and Luna roamed beyond the curfew hours, exploring the Moonlight Gorge, a hidden valley rich with luminescent flowers. They lost track of time, reveling in the tranquility of the night. As they made their way back to the city, they stumbled upon an Imperial patrol led by none other than Captain Zalthar himself. His eyes glinted with malice under the pale moonlight. "Well, well, what do we have here?" Zalthar sneered, his scaly lips curling into a grin. "A curfew breaker and her little pet." Mara felt a cold chill run down her spine but stood her ground. "We mean no harm, Captain Zalthar. We were just exploring." Zalthar stepped forward, towering over her. "Exploring, huh? Perhaps a lesson in obedience is in order." He snapped his fingers, and two Talcaran soldiers lunged forward, seizing Luna. The astral fox struggled, emitting a high-pitched whine that pierced Mara's heart. "Leave her alone," Mara shouted, trying to reach Luna, but Zalthar blocked her path. "She needs to learn her place," he hissed, drawing his blaster. "Consider this a warning to all humans." In a flash, he aimed and fired. Luna's whine was abruptly cut off, and she fell limp to the ground, a charred wound on her chest. Mara froze, her eyes wide with disbelief as she watched Luna's lifeless body crumple. "No," she screamed, falling to her knees beside Luna and cradling her in her arms. "No, no, no!" Tears streamed down her face as she rocked back and forth, holding Luna's still warm body. The Talcaran soldiers looked on, unfazed, while Zalthar holstered his blaster and turned away. "Let that be a lesson to all of you," he said, his voice cold and indifferent. "Obey the Empire or face the consequences." He signaled his patrol to leave, and Mara was left alone with Luna in the empty street. For hours she sat there, her sorrow slowly turning into fury. The humans in Nyx mourned with her, their hearts breaking for the loss of Luna. But Mara's pain was unmatched. The next morning, she stood before the gathered crowd in the marketplace, her eyes burning with determination. "The Galactic Empire has taken everything from us," she declared. "They have killed our companions, our family. They will pay for what they've done. We will burn their worlds to the ground." A murmur spread through the crowd as Mara's words ignited a long-suppressed anger. From that day forward, Mara Solis became the face of rebellion on Ferris IV. She rallied the humans, calling for an uprising against the Talkarans. In the shadows, a group known as the Ember Guard heard her call. Comprised of human and alien sympathizers, they reached out to Mara, offering covert support. They supplied arms, intelligence, and strategies. Within weeks, skirmishes erupted across Ferris IV as the rebels struck Imperial patrols and outposts. The Talkarans underestimated the ferocity of Mara's rage and the determination of the human community. The human uprising on Ferris IV grew unstoppable, and the Talkarans found themselves outmatched. As the rebellion spread, the Galactic Empire grew concerned. They ordered a blockade and reinforcements to quell the uprising. But Mara knew their time was limited. In one defiant broadcast that reached every corner of the Empire, she declared, "The Galactic Empire killed our companions, our family. We will burn their worlds to the ground." And the galaxy trembled in anticipation. Mara's sorrow turned into a burning resolve, and she vowed to avenge Luna's death. She began rallying the humans of Ferris IV, calling for an uprising against the Talkarans and the oppressive Galactic Empire. The marketplace speech marked the beginning of a rebellion that would echo across the stars. Her charisma and righteous fury ignited the ember of rebellion. Men and women, young and old, joined her cause, and the streets of Nyx buzzed with whispered plans and secret meetings. She quickly assembled a small but dedicated team of strategists and fighters. The newly formed rebel group, the Ember Guard, began striking at the heart of the Talkaran power structure. In a small, dimly lit cellar beneath an abandoned warehouse, Mara and her lieutenants met to discuss their next move. "Ferris IV is under a tight blockade," said Kale, a rugged smuggler turned rebel strategist. He pointed to a flickering holographic map projected above the table. "There are 3 main supply routes feeding the Imperial garrison in Nyx, each guarded by Talkaran patrols." "We could cut their supply lines," said Delara, a former Imperial pilot who defected to the rebellion. "Hit them where it hurts." Mara nodded thoughtfully. "Kale, can you get us intel on their patrol schedules?" Kale grinned. "Leave it to me." Over the next week, the Ember Guard collected intelligence on the Imperial patrols and supply routes. They carefully plotted a series of coordinated attacks. When the time came, the rebels struck swiftly, sabotaging convoys, disabling patrol vehicles, and raiding key outposts. The Talkaran forces were caught off guard, and chaos erupted across the moon. Mara personally led a daring raid on the Imperial garrison in Nyx, freeing hundreds of prisoners and capturing weapons and supplies. The rebels moved like ghosts, disappearing into the dense forests and labyrinthine caves before the Talkarans could mount a counterattack. The uprising quickly gained momentum. Human sympathizers and alien allies provided shelter, resources, and information. The Ember Guard established hidden bases deep in the forests, fortified with stolen Imperial weaponry and manned by dedicated volunteers. As the rebellion spread, the Talkarans tightened their grip. They imposed martial law and ordered mass arrests, but the crackdown only fueled the flames. Anger simmered among the humans, and more joined the cause daily. One evening, Mara met with the Ember Guard leaders in a cave illuminated by phosphorescent fungi. "We need to broaden our reach," she said. "We can't win this fight alone." "We have allies," said Harlan, a grizzled ex-soldier and Mara's second-in-command. "The Zirans, the Korla, the Crixians, they've all suffered under the Empire." "But how do we reach them?" asked Delara. "We send a message," Mara replied, her eyes blazing. "Broadcast our cause across the stars. Let them know the time has come to rise." Within days, a secret signal was transmitted from a makeshift communications array hidden in the heart of the forest. Mara's voice echoed through the void, reaching the oppressed races across the galaxy. "To all who suffer under the Galactic Empire, the Ember Guard calls you to arms. The Talkarans have taken our families, our freedom, our worlds, but together we can break their chains. Rise up, fight back, and join us. The Empire killed our companions, our family. We will burn their worlds to the ground." The message resonated far beyond Ferris IV. On the cold planet of Viridia, the Zirans, a race of winged avians, heard the call. They had long chafed under the Empire's rule, their majestic cities reduced to slums by the Talcarans. Led by Commander Arik Sky, the Zirans pledged their support to the Ember Guard, the amphibious Korla of Nolthar, whose oceans had been polluted by Imperial mining, joined as well. Their leader, Admiral Keylor, vowed to help break the Imperial blockade around Ferris IV. The Crixians, masters of engineering and technology, provided advanced weaponry and tactical expertise. Their leader, Chief Taro, was instrumental in developing the Alliance's strategy. Thus, the Alliance of the Free Races was born. In a hidden base, deep within the labyrinthine caves of Ferris IV, Mara met with the leaders of the other races. She laid out a bold strategy. They would strike at the heart of the Empire, the capital planet of Zircanus. But first, they had to break the blockade. The Alliance devised an intricate plan. The Ziran pilots and their swift starships would distract the Imperial fleet, while the Crixians would disable the blockade generators. Meanwhile, the humans and the Korla would secure key outposts on the moon's surface. The operation, codenamed Emberstorm, was set in motion. At the break of dawn, the Zirans soared into the sky, their sleek ships engaging the Imperial fleet in daring dogfights. Explosions lit up the atmosphere as the Crixian saboteurs infiltrated the blockade stations and hacked into their systems. On the ground, Mara led a strike team of humans and Korla to capture a key communications outpost. They moved through the dense underbrush, cloaked in the mist rising from the forest floor. With silent efficiency, they neutralized the guards and breached the control room. Delara plugged into the main console, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "We're in," she said, "transmitting false data now." In the orbit above, Imperial ships scrambled to respond to the phantom attacks. Confused orders crackled over the comms as the fleet repositioned itself, unwittingly creating a gap in the blockade. "All units, this is Mara," she said over the Alliance channel. "Go, go, go!" Admiral Kahlor's Korla ships slipped through the gap, their torpedo bays loaded and ready. They unleashed a devastating volley on the nearest Imperial cruiser, ripping it apart in a fiery explosion. The Ziran pilots pressed the attack, and the Imperial fleet faltered. On the ground, the rebels stormed the remaining outposts, capturing Imperial officers and securing vital resources. By the end of the day, the blockade lay in ruins, and the Alliance was free to move. The victory was celebrated across Ferris IV, but Mara knew this was just the beginning. The Alliance forces regrouped in the caves to plan the next phase of their campaign. Mara stood before the gathered leaders, her voice steady and determined. "Today, we broke their blockade. Tomorrow, we will break their empire. We will take the fight to Zircanus and show them the fury of the oppressed." Commander Arik Sky stepped forward. "The Zirans stand with you." Admiral Keylor nodded. "And the Korla." Chief Taro raised a fist. "For freedom." The Ember Guard, the Zirans, the Korla, and the Crixians cheered as one. The fires of rebellion burned bright, and the Galactic Empire trembled in its shadow. The Ember Rising had begun. In the cavernous heart of Ferris IV, Mara Solis and the leaders of the newly formed Alliance of the Free Races met to lay out their bold strategy against the Galactic Empire. The subterranean chamber, carved by volcanic activity over millennia, was aglow with luminescent moss and bioluminescent insects that flitted around the room, creating a mystical atmosphere. Commander Arik Sky of the Zirans, Admiral Keylor of the Korla, and Chief Taro of the Crixians stood around the central holographic map displaying the capital planet of Zircanus and its orbital defenses. Mara took a deep breath, her gaze steady as she addressed the room. "We've dealt the Empire a blow by breaking their blockade," she began. "But that was only the first step. Now we must strike at the heart of the Empire, Zircanus itself." Admiral Keylor, his amphibious features glistening in the eerie light, stepped forward. "The Korla fleet will lead the initial assault, creating a diversion at the outer defenses. Our ships can maneuver swiftly through the asteroid fields." Commander Sky spread his majestic wings, the azure feathers reflecting the light. "The Ziran pilots will provide air support. drawing the Imperial fighters away from the main attack force. Chief Taro, a Crixian engineer with a reputation for brilliance, tapped on the holographic console, highlighting key points on the map. "We'll disable their orbital defenses and communication relays. Without those, they'll be blind and unable to coordinate reinforcements." Mara nodded approvingly. "Perfect. Meanwhile, our ground forces will infiltrate the capital city and capture the Imperial Palace. Zalthar will be hiding there, and it's time he faces justice for what he's done." The Alliance leaders concurred, and they spent the following days refining the details of their plan. Small strike teams were assembled, blending humans, Zurans, Korla, and Crixians. Each team had a specific objective within the Imperial Palace: the throne room, the command center, the prison complex, and the energy core. When all preparations were complete, the Ember Guard broadcast one final message to the galaxy. "To all oppressed by the Galactic Empire, the time has come to rise up. The Alliance of the Free Races marches to Zircanus to bring freedom to all. Join us in the fight, and together, we will burn the Empire to ashes." The day of the assault dawned on Zircanus, the twin suns casting long shadows across the gleaming spires of the Imperial Palace. The Talcaran guards patrolled the streets, their reptilian eyes scanning for any sign of dissent. Unbeknownst to them, a massive fleet was converging on their world. The Korla ships struck first, emerging from the asteroid fields and raining torpedoes on the outer defenses. Explosions rocked the orbital stations, and alarms blared throughout the palace. The Zuran pilots swooped in like birds of prey, weaving through the chaos and engaging Imperial fighters. Chief Taro and his Crixian engineers infiltrated the communications relay, disabling the planetary defense grid and plunging the palace into darkness. In the confusion, Mara and her strike teams launched their assault. They breached the palace walls and fought their way through the corridors, the sounds of blasters and the hum of energy blades filling the air. Mara led a team toward the throne room, cutting down Talcaran soldiers with ruthless precision. At her side was Harlan, her second-in-command, and Delara, the ex-Imperial pilot. They burst into the throne room to find Zalthar and his elite guards waiting. The Talcaran captain sneered at Mara, his golden scales glinting in the dim light. "You dare challenge me, human?" he hissed, drawing his energy sword. "You killed my family," Mara replied coldly, "and now I'll burn your world." Zalthar lunged, his sword crackling with energy. Mara parried with her blaster rifle, deflecting the blade and delivering a swift kick to his chest. He stumbled back, snarling, and swung again, but Harlan intervened, firing a shot that grazed Zalthar's arm. Enraged, Zalthar roared and charged at Harlan, but Delara flanked him, her energy blade slicing through his side. "Enough!" Zalthar bellowed, clutching his wound. "You will all die for this!" With a final burst of strength, he raised his sword to strike Mara, but she was quicker. She leveled her blaster at his chest and fired. The shot pierced his heart, and he crumpled to the ground, his scales smoldering. The palace fell silent. Mara stood over Zalthar's body, her breath steady. Justice is served. The Alliance forces quickly secured the palace, freeing the prisoners and neutralizing any remaining resistance. Chief Taro brought the energy core under control, preventing a catastrophic meltdown. Outside, the Korla fleet and Zuran pilots had decimated the Imperial defenses, and the capital city was in the hands of the Alliance. The victory on Zircanus sparked uprisings across the galaxy. On every Imperial world, oppressed races rose against their Talcaran overlords, tearing down statues, storming prisons, and reclaiming their freedom. Mara stood before the gathered Alliance leaders in the throne room, her voice steady and determined. "We've taken the heart of the Empire," she said. "Now we must fan the flames of rebellion and burn their rule to the ground." Commander Arixkai nodded, his wings spreading wide. "The Zirhans stand with you." Admiral Keylor raised his trident. "And the Korla." Chief Taro clenched a fist. "For freedom!" The Ember Guard, the Zirans, the Korla, and the Crixians cheered as one. The Alliance of the Free Races had struck a fatal blow, and the Galactic Empire was crumbling. The flames of rebellion burned bright, and the Talcaran's reign was nearing its end. The planet Zircanus, heart of the Galactic Empire, burned like a crimson beacon in the void. The once glimmering imperial palace lay in ruins, and the remaining Talcaran forces fought a desperate defensive battle against the onslaught of the Alliance of the Free Races. Above Zircanis, the remnants of the Imperial fleet struggled to hold their ground. The Ziran pilots, with their agile starfighters, darted through the confusion, blasting Imperial cruisers and shuttles to pieces. The Korla fleet, led by Admiral Keylor, unleashed devastating volleys of torpedoes, leaving only burning wreckage in their wake. The Crixians, skilled engineers and hackers, had disabled the planetary defense grid and blinded the Imperial commanders. Inside the palace walls, Mara Solis led her strike team through the labyrinthine corridors toward the throne room. Her eyes blazed with fury, and her heart pounded with anticipation. With Zalthar dead, the last obstacle to the Talcaran Emperor, Zalzar, lay in the form of the elite Imperial Guards. Dalara, the ex-Imperial pilot, moved beside Mara, her energy blade humming softly. Harlan, her second-in-command, followed closely, blaster at the ready. Together they navigated the twisting passageways, evading traps and neutralizing patrols. They reached the grand throne room, its high ceiling adorned with glittering mosaics depicting the Talcaran conquests. The massive doors stood ajar, revealing the throne at the far end. There sat Emperor Zalzar, an imposing figure with shimmering golden scales, his eyes burning with hatred. Around him stood the elite Imperial Guards, clad in ornate armor and armed with energy pikes. They stepped forward, forming a protective circle around the Emperor. Mara glanced at her team. "This is it. We take down Zalzar and the Empire falls with him." With a nod, Dalara and Harlan prepared for battle. Mara stepped into the throne room, her voice echoing through the hall. "Zalzar, your reign is over. Surrender, and I might show you mercy." The Emperor rose from his throne, towering over the rebels. "Mercy," he hissed, his forked tongue flicking out. "You dare speak of mercy, human." His eyes glowed, and he raised a clawed hand. "Kill them!" The Imperial Guards charged forward, their energy pikes crackling with power. Mara and her team met them head-on. Dalara's blade clashed with a pike, sending sparks flying as she spun around and struck down her opponent. Harlan fired a volley of blaster shots, dropping 2 guards before ducking behind a pillar. Mara locked eyes with Zalzar and charged, her blaster rifle blazing. The Emperor leaped from the throne, his scales gleaming in the dim light. He slashed at Mara with his energy sword, and she barely dodged, feeling the heat singe her armor. "You are nothing but an insect beneath my claws," Zalzar snarled, swinging his sword in a wide arc. Mara parried with her rifle, then ducked under his guard and fired a point-blank shot into his abdomen. The Emperor roared in pain and lashed out, throwing Mara across the room. She hit the wall hard, her vision blurring for a moment. As Zalzar advanced, she struggled to her feet, reaching for her blaster. Suddenly, Dalara appeared beside her, her blade glowing with energy. She lunged at Zalzar, but he deflected her strike with a snarl. Harlan fired from behind a pillar, but the shots bounced off the Emperor's thick scales. "Enough!" Zalzar bellowed. He swung his sword, slicing through Dalara's armor and sending her crashing to the ground. Mara saw Dalara fall and felt a surge of rage. She grabbed her blaster and fired, aiming for the glowing scar on Zalzar's chest. The shot struck true, and the Emperor staggered back, his eyes wide with fury. "You will not defeat me," he hissed, raising his sword for a final strike. Mara leaped forward, her blaster blazing. She fired again and again, each shot tearing into Zalzar's chest until he collapsed to his knees. With one last defiant snarl, the Talcaran Emperor fell to the ground, lifeless. The throne room fell silent. Mara stood over Zalzar's body, her breath heavy. "Justice is served," she muttered, lowering her blaster. She turned to find Harlan helping Dalara to her feet. The pilot winced in pain but gave Mara a thumbs up. "It's over?" Dalara asked, her voice strained. Mara nodded. "It's over." Outside, the sounds of battle had died down. The Alliance forces had secured the palace and neutralized the remaining Imperial resistance. Commander Arik Sky led a squadron of Zirans to clear the last pockets of Talcaran guards, while Admiral Keylor ordered his Korla fleet to blockade the planet. Chief Taro and his Crixian engineers brought the energy core under control, preventing a catastrophic meltdown. With the Imperial Palace secured, the Alliance of the Free Races broadcast their victory to the galaxy. Today we have toppled the Talkaran Emperor and freed Zircanus from the Galactic Empire, Mara declared, her voice steady and resolute. The flames of rebellion will continue to burn until all oppressed worlds are free. Rise up, join us, and together we will destroy the Empire. The victory on Zircanus sparked uprisings across the galaxy. On every Imperial world, oppressed races rose against their Talkaran overlords, tearing down statues, storming prisons, and reclaiming their freedom. Mara stood before the gathered Alliance leaders in the throne room, her voice steady and determined. "We've taken the heart of the Empire," she said. "Now we must fan the flames of rebellion and burn their rule to the ground." Commander Arixkai nodded, his wings spreading wide. "The Zirans stand with you." Admiral Kalor raised his trident. "And the Korla." Chief Taro clenched a fist. "For freedom." The Ember Guard, the Zirans, the Korla, and the Crixians cheered as one. The Alliance of the Free Races had struck a fatal blow, and the Galactic Empire was crumbling. The flames of rebellion burned bright, and the Talkaran's reign was nearing its end. The fall of Zircanus sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The death of Emperor Zalzar shattered the Talkaran hierarchy, leaving the remaining governors and military commanders scrambling for control. Chaos spread through the Empire's territories like wildfire. On Ferris IV, Mara Solis stood before the Council of the Alliance of the Free Races, her gaze steely and determined. The council chamber, deep in the heart of the cavernous Ember Guard base, was illuminated by the flickering light of holographic projectors. Commander Arixkai, Admiral Kalor, and Chief Taro listened intently as Mara spoke. "With Zalzar dead and Zircanus burning, the Talkaran governors are in disarray," she said. "We have to press our advantage and strike at their strongholds across the galaxy." Commander Arixkai unfurled his wings, nodding in agreement. "The Zirans are ready. We'll take the fight to the governors." Admiral Kalor stepped forward, his amphibious eyes gleaming. "The Korla fleet will blockade their supply lines." Chief Taro of the Crixians tapped a holographic console, bringing up a map of Imperial territories. "Our engineers can disrupt their communication networks and create confusion among their ranks." Mara leaned over the map, her finger tracing a path through the stars. "We will systematically purge every Talkaran stronghold until none remain. This is our moment to end the Empire once and for all." Thus began what would later be known as the Great Purge. The Alliance launched a series of coordinated assaults across the galaxy. The Ziran pilots swooped down on Talkaran governors' palaces, their starfighters leaving trails of fire in their wake. The Korla fleet blockaded key trade routes, starving the Imperial garrisons of supplies. Crixian hackers infiltrated the Imperial communication networks, spreading false orders and sowing chaos among the Talkaran ranks. On the desert world of Alkari V, Mara led a strike team against Governor Vrax's fortress. The fortress was a sprawling maze of sandstone walls and fortified towers, guarded by Talkaran soldiers and automated turrets. Delara, the ex-Imperial pilot, hovered above the fortress in her sleek shuttle, providing air support. Harlan, Mara's second-in-command, crouched beside her in the dunes, his blaster ready. "Ready when you are, Mara," Delara's voice crackled over the comms. Mara took a deep breath and signaled her team. They moved swiftly through the dunes, their sand-colored cloaks blending into the landscape. They reached the outer wall and planted charges at the base. With a nod from Mara, Harlan detonated the explosives, and the wall crumbled, sending a plume of dust into the air. "Go, go, go," Mara shouted, leading the charge into the fortress. The Talkaran guards opened fire, but the rebels advanced relentlessly, their blasters cutting down the defenders one by one. Mara fought her way through the maze of corridors, reaching the inner sanctum where Governor Vrax was hiding. The Talkaran governor was a hulking figure, his scales glistening under the dim lights. He snarled as Mara entered, brandishing his energy pike. "You dare challenge me, human?" Mara raised her blaster, her eyes cold. "Your empire killed my family. Now it's your turn." She fired, and the shot struck Vrax in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The fortress fell, and with it the Talkaran control of Alkari V. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the ocean world of Nolthar, Admiral Keylor led the Korla fleet in a naval assault against Governor Zorak's underwater palace. The Korla submarines surrounded the palace, launching torpedoes that shattered its walls. Zorak tried to flee in his personal submersible, but Keylor intercepted him, dragging him to the surface in chains. On the ice moon of Viridia, Commander Arik Sky and his Zuran pilots stormed the frozen citadel of Governor Thalrin. The Tal'Karan guards tried to hold their ground, but the Zurans overwhelmed them with aerial bombardments. Thalrin was captured and brought before Sky, who delivered swift justice with his energy sword. As the Alliance forces purged the Tal'Karan governors, they liberated the oppressed races, freeing slaves and dismantling labor camps. The Ember Guard recruited new members from every liberated world, swelling their ranks and strengthening their resolve. But not all Tal'Karans surrendered willingly. On the volcanic planet of Draconis, Governor Zorath fortified his palace and swore to fight to the bitter end. Mara led the assault on Draconis personally, knowing that breaking Zorath's resistance would send a powerful message to the remaining Imperial holdouts. The palace was built into the side of a smoldering volcano, and the surrounding lava fields made a direct assault nearly impossible. But the Crixians devised a plan to infiltrate the palace through the magma tunnels beneath the volcano. Mara and her team descended into the tunnels, guided by Chief Taro's maps. The heat was intense, and the air was thick with sulfur, but they pressed on. After hours of crawling through the tunnels, they emerged inside the palace walls. The Tal'Karan guards were taken by surprise as the rebels stormed the corridors, cutting them down with ruthless efficiency. They reached Zorath's throne room, finding the governor seated on his obsidian throne, his eyes glowing with fury. "Traitors!" he roared, drawing his energy sword. "You will burn for your defiance!" He lunged at Mara, but she dodged and fired a shot that grazed his shoulder. Harlan and Delara flanked him, their blasters forcing him back. With a snarl, Zorath swung his sword in a wide arc, but Mara ducked under the blade and fired a point-blank shot into his chest. The governor staggered back, his scales smoldering, and fell into the lava below, his screams echoing through the chamber. The Alliance forces secured the palace and declared Draconis free. The Great Purge lasted for months. System by system, the Tal'Karan strongholds fell one by one, leaving smoldering ruins in their wake. The remaining governors either surrendered or fled into the far reaches of the galaxy. By the end of the Purge, the Galactic Empire was no more. The Tal'Karan reign had crumbled, and the alliance of the free races stood victorious. In the ruins of the Imperial Palace on Zirconis, Mara and the Alliance leaders gathered to discuss the future. They stood around the shattered throne, the glow of the rising suns bathing the room in golden light. Commander Arik Sky spread his wings wide. "The Tal'Karans are defeated, but our work is not done. We must build a new future for all free races." Admiral Keylor nodded. "A future where no one lives in chains." Chief Taro adjusted his goggles. "And where knowledge and technology are shared freely." Mara stepped forward, her eyes bright. "Let us build a council representing all races, a council of free worlds." The leaders agreed, and the Council of Free Worlds was established. Representatives from each race gathered to ensure that every voice was heard, and every world had a say in the new order. Mara refused to take the title of ruler, but she remained a guiding voice in the council, advocating for peace and unity. With the Tal'Karan Empire shattered, the liberated systems prospered under the council's democratic rule. But Mara could not forget Luna. One quiet day, she traveled to the ruins of the Tal'Karan Palace on Ferris 4. There she placed a small monument in Luna's memory, carved from a single piece of moonstone. "Rest, my friend," she whispered, laying a glowing flower beside the monument. "The worlds have burned for you." And thus, the Great Purge ended, and the galaxy entered a new era of peace and unity. The Alliance of the Free Races stood as a beacon of hope for the oppressed, and the legend of Mara Solis, the once grieving pet owner turned warrior, was etched into the stars. In the wake of the Great Purge, the galaxy stood at a pivotal moment. The Alliance of the Free Races had shattered the chains of the Galactic Empire and toppled the Tal'Karan overlords, but the work of building a new society had only just begun. 1. Founding the Council of Free Worlds. The newly liberated worlds were buzzing with anticipation and uncertainty. In the ruins of the Imperial Palace on Zircanus, Mara Solis and the Alliance leaders convened to formalize their vision for the future. The Council of Free Worlds was born in the palace's Grand Hall, now illuminated by sunlight streaming through shattered windows. Delegates from every liberated race gathered around a circular table, eager to have their voices heard. Commander Arik Sky, with his wings folded neatly, spoke first. The Zirans propose a charter ensuring every race, no matter how small, has a say in the future. Admiral Keylor of the Korla, his amphibious eyes gleaming, nodded. And that slavery or any form of oppression shall never be tolerated again. Chief Taro, the brilliant Crixian engineer, adjusted his goggles. The Crixians will lead in sharing technology and knowledge, ensuring that innovation and progress are accessible to all. Mara Solis stood before them all, her gaze steady and resolute. Together, we will build a galaxy where freedom, justice, and equality are not just ideals but realities. The Council of Free Worlds will guide us, and each of us will have a voice. The Charter of the Free Worlds was signed, creating a democratic body that represented all races and regions. They divided the liberated territories into autonomous regions, each governed by local councils but unified under the greater body of the council. 2. Rebuilding the galaxy. Rebuilding a shattered galaxy was no easy feat. The Alliance dispatched teams of engineers, diplomats, and aid workers to help devastated planets recover. On the ocean world of Nolthar, Admiral Keylor led efforts to clean up the toxic waste left by Imperial mining. The Korla used their advanced hydroengineering skills to restore the polluted seas, and within months, the coral reefs and vibrant marine life returned. In the cold cities of Viridia, Commander Arik Sky worked with local leaders to build new shelters and food distribution centers. The Zirans taught the people how to farm the hardy ice root plant, providing a stable food source. The Crixians, under Chief Taro's guidance, established research stations on former Imperial planets, developing new energy technologies and medical advancements that benefited all races. Mara Solis, alongside Delara and Harlan, traveled from world to world, mediating disputes and encouraging unity. They spoke of freedom and justice, inspiring others to join the effort to rebuild. 3. The Ember Guard's legacy. The Ember Guard, once a ragtag group of rebels, transformed into a peacekeeping force. Their mission was to protect the liberated worlds from remnants of the Imperial regime and prevent the rise of new tyrants. Delara led the Guard's flight division, training pilots to patrol the far reaches of space. Harlan oversaw ground operations, ensuring that every outpost was well defended. One day, as Mara inspected a Guard training camp on Ferris 4, she found herself gazing at the monument she had placed in Luna's memory. The moonstone statue shimmered in the twilight, and she knelt beside it, placing a fresh flower at its base. "You would be proud of us, my friend," she whispered. "Your spirit still guides us." She stood, her eyes wet with tears, but filled with determination. She knew the Ember Guard's work was not done. 4. The last Talcaran holdouts. While most of the Talcaran governors had been purged or captured, a few holdouts still hid in the galaxy's darker corners. They gathered what forces they could muster and plotted to regain control. In a remote asteroid field known as the Shadow Zone, one such holdout, Governor Krathus, was amassing a fleet. He planned to launch a surprise attack on the Council of Free Worlds. Mara received intelligence of Krathus's plans and quickly mobilized the Ember Guard. The Ziran pilots led a daring assault on the asteroid base, while the Korla fleet blockaded the escape routes. The Crixian engineers hacked into Krathus's systems, disabling his shields. The final battle was intense, but Mara and her team infiltrated the command center and captured Krathus alive. He was brought before the council to stand trial for his crimes. "The old ways are gone, Krathus," Mara said as she stood before the former governor. "Your reign is over," he snarled, but was led away in chains. 5. The New Dawn. With the Talcaran holdouts defeated and the Council of Free Worlds firmly established, the galaxy entered a new era. Trade routes reopened, and the liberated races shared their cultures, knowledge, and resources. Mara stood on a hill overlooking the rebuilt city of Nyx on Ferris 4. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the valley. Beside her stood Harlan, Delara, and the Alliance leaders. "We did it," Delara said softly, a smile on her face. Mara nodded. "We did, but this is just the beginning." Admiral Kilor folded his arms across his chest. "A new dawn has come. Let's make sure we honor those who fought for it." Commander Arik Sky spread his wings wide. "For freedom!" Chief Taro raised a fist. "For unity!" Mara looked out at the horizon, her eyes bright with hope. For all races and all worlds. And thus, the galaxy emerged from the flames of rebellion into a dawn of freedom. The legend of Mara Solis and the Ember Guard would be told for generations, inspiring countless others to stand up for justice and equality. The end.